Well, I'm Ronald Chesney.
He's a good-looking one. I'm Ronald Wolfe. I think that we first met on a radio show, Education and Archie.
Yes.
And I was one of the writers with Marty Feldman, and you came along with some ideas, and he was playing the harmonica.
He was playing the harmonica in those days. I had Archie Andrews talking harmonica. I found out how to make my harmonica talk, which was quite a thing in itself those days. And there was a thing called Sparky's Magic Piano, which had come out, and I made the harmonica talk, and I was on the show, and then I realised, who was writing it? Eric Sykes started, and then...
Eric Sykes started Education
and then
Archie.
he left, and Ronnie and I took over.
That's it.
And then we were clever enough, we were sensible enough to realise that the thing that really counted was television. So we got together and put together a television show called The Rag Trade, and we were lucky, it was a big hit. And from then on we went on, you know.
Well, The Rag Trade started, we sent it to rediffusion. I remember the letter that came back. So half the population of England works in factories. The last thing they want to do when they come home from work is to look at a show set in a factory. And that was it. And then we were lucky again, because you do need that bit of luck. Frank Muir and Dennis Dorn were made comedy advisors to the BBC. And again, we took the show to them, and it was booked in about 20 minutes or so. And
Actually, it was based on a factory owned by Dennis Norden's wife. Mother, rather, wasn't it? Well, no, that factory in...
Shall we say that again?
Yes.
We didn't know what setting to have the show, and then Dennis Norden said, my father, George Norden's got this little workroom in just off the West End, Margaret Street.
That's right, and there was a lady in a white coat, she was the sort of the shop steward sort of thing, and about 6 girls sitting around a table making wedding dresses.
For £3.17 and 6.
And we thought, you know, and in fact, the Rag Trade was very good in that respect. We did, I don't know how many episodes, 50 or 60, all in one set. It was the cheapest show ever, from that point of view.
I remember there's a girl in charge at George Norton. I said, these wedding dresses, and I said, they're not all that well made, are they? She said, well, they only wear them the once. They only wear them the once.
And then we went on from then to
Meet the Wife.
Meet the Wife with Thora Hird. Well, that was true. Thora was fantastic. She was one of the best people we've ever written for, I think, in my opinion. She had that ability to be an actress, but also to be a comedian, to be able to do jokes. It's rather like a musician who can do, Andrei Previn, who can play classical music, but also do jazz. Similar sort of idea, you know?
Yeah, well, Thora was great to work for, but again, the BBC then, maybe even now, they didn't like North Country people. I remember we took the pilot show starring Thora to one of the bosses there. He said, oh, why do you want to write for that clapped-out North Country performer? I can't believe it.
Yes,
and then Bill Cotton came to our rescue. He booked the pilot show.
He was more commercial, yes, he liked it.
That was great. But the BBC never, ever really liked Meet the Wife. They wanted every show to be a bit like Yes Minister or something like that. There was a lot of opposition, but the show did so well they had to book it.
And they wanted to write another one, so we sent in the idea of On the Buses to the BBC, and it was turned down. So we took it to London Weekend Television.
Well, we're lucky again. Frank Muir then was at London Weekend Television. Yes.
And desperately looking for a hit show.
They'd had a disastrous time. Every show they put on, it was a new network, every show they put on was a flop. And Frank was so relieved to have a show that at least he said it might work a bit. It won't be a complete disaster. And again, it was in 20 minutes. He came down with the contract, it was fine. And we then set about casting the show, which is a bit daft in a way, because we had Reg Varney, who thought might be good, but...
Well, I was playing on the stage, still playing my harmonica at the time, and I worked with Reg Varney in, I don't know, Southend or somewhere, and I said to Ronnie, I think he would be right as the driver, you see. And so Ronnie came to Bournemouth, and we had another look and chatted him up, and we said, he's just right, because he was straight-faced. And it's interesting, the things about, on the buses, things you learn about buses. The drivers of buses, in those days, particularly when they had conductors and double-storey buses, the drivers lived 5 years less than the conductors, on average. Because they sit all day long in a bus, in aggravation and never moving, whereas the conductor's up and down the stairs and chatting up the people.
And all that horrible food at the bus.
And that is a fact. Yeah. But in those days, the bus drivers lived much less than the conductors. Extraordinary, isn't it?
But Reg would have been a bus driver, I think.
Yes, and Reg, he was a moody sort of, you know, he had this not at all confident things where the guy who played the inspector was confident and knocking off the ladies and so on and so on. And Reg wasn't like that, you see, and he was just right.